Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, here once again with Caesar. Oh man, that never gets old, man. Caesar. But is this the? It says the last campaign. Is this actually like the final episode of Caesar? I don't think so. I think we're. I don't know. It's the last campaign, so it's just his last campaign. I'm sure we're gonna have like the fallout and everything, and then his death and everything, right? They're not gonna. If it was his death in this episode, they would have said it, right. So I don't think this is the last Caesar episode. Just the last campaign, obviously. So I guess it's like the kind of like the last battle, right? Right? I'm not sure, but it's super exciting. I thank you guys. I didn't know, but you guys reminded me in the comments. I actually got a notification from with the bell from Kings and Generals. But thank you guys. You're reminding me about that, so I really appreciate you guys reminding me when these new episodes drop. And it came at a good time because it came right after the kind of like the Viking series, like before like what was I gonna do next? I think I was gonna do like the kind of the continuation. Is it Norwegian? Norway? No, it's not Norway. It's Normandy versus like Italy or something. I don't know. That's what I was thinking about doing next. Kind of continuing that little time period area right there. But yes. While I'm talking to you guys, I've always wanted to do the 100 Years War, but I don't want to do it when it's only halfway through the series. I kind of want to do the whole series. Have to like kind of like I'm doing now with Caesar, kind of like do an episode like once a month kind of thing. So you guys can kind of let me know in the comments if that series is done or if it still has more episodes left. Because if it does, I'm just gonna wait till that's done. But anyways, guys, yeah, please hit that like and subscribe button below. And oh yeah, like last time I left Caesar, I actually went back and rewatched like the last minute. I think it was the last minute of the previous episode, just to kind of get the gist of it. I mean, I hope they kind of like tell us kind of how it happened in the previous episode here. But I do just went back and just saw like a minute of it where they had that big battle where Caesar basically Scipio got him, and Scipio's dead. And I mean Caesar wasn't sure if Scipio had a plan and was setting up a trap, but his Caesar's troops kind of took the initiative and went on the offensive, and Caesar's like, "Oh crap, I gotta go along with this." But then it ended up working out in the end because he kind of like destroyed him. So Caesar, and guys, he's a genius when it comes to warfare, guys. So I kind of wish like it was Caesar and like Napoleon's era and vice versa. I kind of wish we could have all these kind of like cool military minds in the same period, but then again, it's different weapons, different tactics, different time periods. So I guess but then I think the same minds being in, I don't know, it'd just be kind of cool to get them all together for a rumble, right? Yeah, that could happen. But anyways, yeah, like, subscribe, and I guess we'll just jump into this. I've been talking to you guys long enough here, blabbering away. You guys have probably already seen this, I bet. He just came out today. Well, yesterday for you guys, but I'm sure you guys have already seen this. But I'm going to watch it now. So anyways, guys, 3, 2, 1, bam. Chocolate milk.
Following the Battle of Thapsus, Caesar had, at least politically, won the civil war. Militarily, though, some ardent optimates still challenged him in Hispania. For Caesar's victory to finally be complete, he needed—
That's right, it's Roman civil war, which Caesar's kind of been dominating. I mean, it looked a little iffy there in the beginning, but right now, there's like no doubt about it. He's got this one. He's just kind of like this little mini uprising. He's just trying to shut those uprisings up, pretty much, right? Anyways.
Challenged him in Hispania. For Caesar's victory to finally be complete, he needed to defeat these last remnants of the opposition. There would be just one more campaign before the civil war was over, Caesar's Spanish War. Welcome to our video on the Battle of Munda. Shout out to Rise of Kingdoms for sponsoring.
Rise of Kingdoms. The Spanish, huh? Let's see if Caesar can beat the Spanish where Napoleon couldn't. That just like makes some people mad in the comments. How dare you say not? How dare you bring Napoleon's name down? Anyways, we're gonna jump this little game here. And I think this is it. There we go. Ready? Let's do it.
The political heart of the Optimate faction, Cato, was dead. Cicero, his natural heir as political head of the faction, had resigned himself to being a part of the new order, rather than fighting against it, hoping that he would be able to persuade Caesar to restore the Republic. Many other Optimate senators had similarly resigned themselves to working with Caesar, in part because many of them had been captured and then spared by him. The extent to which Caesar had won politically can be seen in the powers bestowed on him in the immediate aftermath of Thapsus. He was made dictator for the third time for a wholly unprecedented 10 years, made prefect of morals, and the Forum of Caesar was completed and dedicated to him in recognition of his achievements. Caesar was, for all practical purposes, the master of Rome.
So he's not an emperor, right? I mean, it's still a republic, right? It's just all the higher powers are on Caesar instead of having all these powers split between what, 3 people. He's got all the powers, but he's not technically an emperor, right? Because he's still basically under contract by the Senate, for 10 years. It's not like a lifetime thing, right? Right? Okay.
However, some of the Optimates still resisted. Naeus and Sextus Pompey had fled from Africa and arrived in Baetica. With them went survivors of Thapsus, including 2 of Caesar's most active and determined opponents, Titus Labienus and Attius Varus. Baetica had been chosen deliberately, as Pompey Magnus had been governor of the province in the 50s BC, and people in the area still respected him, including legionaries who fought against Caesar during the Spanish campaign of 49 BC. His sons found plenty of support, and managed to amass 1 legion from survivors of Thapsus. Shortly after their arrival,
hey, wouldn't the easiest thing to be? I'm sure this was a lot harder. I mean, this is not it's not easy by any means. I don't know, but just try and get some spies, and just get someone, I guess, that's close to Caesar, to kill him. I guess that ends up happening, right? But I mean, have they been trying to do this since the beginning? Just to get him assassinated, just get like someone to walk in there and stab him or whatever. I know that something like that ends up happening anyway, but yeah, I don't know. Just like now, especially now where you're kind of like the odds are against you big time. I mean, before when you had like even armies and stuff, yeah, it makes sense. Better army win, but when that's not an option, you kind of have to go to desperate measures, right?
Amass 1 legion from survivors of Thapsus. Shortly after their arrival, 2 legions under Trebonius's command had sided with the brothers, and they had managed to levy 1 more from sympathetic Roman citizens in the area, many of whom had previously served under Pompey's command. Additionally, the brothers made alliances with some Lusitanian tribes, and had drawn a number of deserters and others to their banners. Caesar claimed that they had 70,000, but he was probably counting garrisons and other supporters in that number.
Yeah, exaggerating.
These events had happened in the summer of 46 BC. Caesar was, at the time, occupied in Rome with assigning magistrates, retiring many of his longest-serving veterans, holding games and triumphs, and beginning the reordering of the calendar. As a result, he had assigned Quintus Pedius and Quintus Fabius Maximus, along with 4 legions already in the Hispanic provinces, to handle the situation. As the months went on, however, Caesar heard of the growing success of the Optimates, and realized that he would, once again, have to handle the matter personally. He gathered 4 more legions, his favorite 10th, the veteran 5th and 6th.
I mean, Caesar's gonna be like, "Oh, come on, guys! I want to stay back home in Rome, relax." Man, you can't my other generals just handle this for me? So yeah, Caesar just says, "Man, I gotta be Caesar again. I gotta take care of business." Oh man.
He gathered 4 more legions, his favorite 10th, the veteran 5th and 6th, and the relatively new 3rd, and marched to Baetica, arriving in the area by the end of the year. By that point, Sextus Pompey had already taken the main city in the area, Cordoba, and was holding it with a strong garrison, while Naeus was in command of the army alongside Labienus. Together, they had laid siege to Ulya, one of the few cities in the area that had not pledged allegiance to them. Caesar got to work immediately. Lucius Vibius Paciacus, one of Caesar's officers who was known to the Ulians and knew the area well, was sent with 6 cohorts and cavalry to the city, while Caesar began to march on Cordoba, hoping to draw Naeus from Ulya, which was his favored tactic. Paciacus approached Ulya during the night, and a huge storm swept in. Seizing his opportunity, Paciacus calmly marched his men through Naeus's lines. The sentries, unable to clearly distinguish any of the legionary symbols of Caesar's men in the dark and through the torrential downpour, simply let them past, allowing Caesar's lieutenant to slip into the town and prepare his men to defend it.
What?
Meanwhile, as Caesar was approaching Cordoba, he sent a detachment of cavalry and mounted legionnaires as a scouting party ahead of his main force. They soon ran into a cavalry unit sent out by Sextus. The two forces clashed, Caesar's legionaries quickly dismounting to fight on foot. Not prepared for fighting heavy infantry, the Pompeians took heavy casualties before breaking and fleeing back to Cordoba with the news that Caesar was near. Urgently, Sextus sent messages to his brother requesting reinforcements. Naeus quickly agreed, abandoning the siege of Ulya and marching to Sextus's aid. Caesar approached Cordoba from the south. It seems that Sextus had either blocked or destroyed the bridge from Cordoba that crossed the Baetis, forcing Caesar to create a makeshift one by lowering baskets piled with stones and then laying planks across them. Afterwards, he made camp outside Cordoba. Naeus soon arrived, encamping opposite, and Caesar immediately began erecting a line of palisades from his camp to the bridge, cutting Naeus off from the city. Similarly, Naeus began creating defenses from his camp to the bridge, hoping to cut off Caesar's escape. Fierce skirmishes were fought on the bridge itself, each side trying to force the other to concede control of it. The narrowness of the bridge made the fighting particularly brutal, and many were either thrown into the river during the fighting, or were killed and their bodies left piled on the bridge.
That had to be some tough fighting, right? And these close quarters where it's when people die, it's not like they just disappear like in a video game. They're laying there, so you have to step on them, and eventually they're gonna pile up there. I mean, you got. But then if you try and move them, the other guys are probably going to try and stab over you, man. That had to be gruesome and just tough. It would just suck. I mean, the guys behind, what are they doing? They're kind of just sitting back there waiting to take their turn pretty much, right? Kind of waiting for, I guess, the guys in front of them to die, or I guess to get too tired and bring them back, right? Because you all can't just line up there, so that'd be really frustrating.
Caesar was hoping for a quick and decisive battle, and this was clearly not going to be that. Accordingly, one night he lit a large number of campfires to give the impression his camp was still garrisoned, and then slipped out of the fort. He carried out a risky river crossing during the night, slipping away from the brothers and making for the town of Ategua.
They're like Hannibal flashbacks right there, where Hannibal did the same thing. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
River crossing during the night, slipping away from the brothers and making for the town of Ategua, which had the strongest Pompeian garrison in the area. The next morning, Naeus realized what had happened, and Labienus pursued with his cavalry, capturing a number of Caesar's supply wagons, but withdrawing before they could be caught and pinned. Caesar, reaching Ategua, began besieging the city, encamping nearby. The terrain around the city was extremely hilly. Many of these had watchtowers already built on them, and as he had done at Ruspina, Caesar quickly assigned pickets. When Naeus and Labienus approached, they did so under heavy fog, and using it, they were able to surround and slaughter a number of Caesar's pickets, with only some horsemen escaping to give Caesar news of their approach. Nevertheless, when the fog lifted, it became clear that Caesar's men had already claimed most of the strategically important high ground in the area. With little choice, Naeus was forced to make camp on high ground between Ategua and Acubi. Although he could still see Ategua, he was not close enough to attack Caesar. The Optimates soon noticed that one of the hills to the south of the town, known as the Camp of Postumius, was an ideal location. A river cutting between it and Caesar's camp would make it difficult for Caesar to reinforce. Furthermore, it was close enough to Caesar to apply pressure and overlooked his supply and communication lines. Caesar and Labienus used this same tactic a number of times in the Gallic Wars, most notably at Gergovia, and Labienus sent a detachment in the night to seize it. The Caesarians, however, were alert, and immediately raised the alarm upon the attack, resisting fiercely. Caesar sent the 5th, 6th, and 10th legions to reinforce them. With their countless experiences of river crossings, the legions were able to quickly ford the river and come to their allies, forcing the Pompeian detachment to retreat to their camp.
I was gonna say, Caesar's got to know, like, they're gonna go for that place, over there. So, I figure, like, this got to be a trap, right? Well, it wasn't really a trap, but he was prepared for, if that took place, and it definitely took place. So, basically, just like, oh, we're gonna try this. Oh, it didn't work, and back out. Neither side really got any losses.
The following day, a reinforcing detachment of cavalry and allied kings arrived to join Caesar, king of West Mauritania Bogud among them. Naeus and Labienus now decided to abandon their position, marching further west to the banks of the river Salsa. Though they would be even less able to pressure Caesar from here, winter was beginning to set in, and this new position would make it easier to be supplied from Cordoba. Caesar, on the other hand, would be forced to winter around Ategua. A stalemate emerged as Naeus and Labienus fortified their camp along the Salsum, while Caesar simultaneously harassed supplies being sent to them from Cordoba and carried out several unsuccessful attacks on Ategua. This situation greatly benefited the Pompeians. With the locals on their side, it was in their best interests to stall Caesar as long as possible and hope to drain his supplies throughout the winter. Caesar, usually known for his clemency, was notably unmerciful during this period, as several prisoners were executed and captured couriers from Cordoba had their hands cut off. Naeus and Labienus kept Caesar under pressure, attacking his pickets, surrounding and killing many, forcing Caesar to send more men to dissuade any other attacks. They also continuously attacked Caesar's cavalry that ventured out to scout and forage. Once again, Caesar had his back against the wall.
Wow.
In early
Caesar had his back against the wall. We're just waiting for, like, the genius to, like, come into play here. His back has been against the wall, like, so many times, countless times, and he's come out on top. Like, so there's gonna be some kind of opening here, and he's gonna exploit it to its fullest. Like, it's coming up right here. Like these guys, they better not make a mistake, because Caesar will just jump on that, and just waiting for it.
At his back against the wall. In early 45 BC, the pro-Caesarian faction in Ategua sent envoys to Caesar, offering to surrender if he agreed to remove the Pompeian garrison and not garrison the city himself. Caesar refused, and the envoys returned to Ategua. The Pompeian garrison soon found out about this and rounded up the men responsible, murdering them. This would prove to be a disastrous decision for the Pompeians. Neither Naeus nor Labienus had ordered this massacre. They were outraged, as this could have cost them the support of the people. Looking to salvage what they could from the situation, they snuck a messenger into Ategua, telling the garrison to sally out that night and force a way through Caesar's lines to their camp. The plan went into effect that night, the garrison rushing out and trying to fight through Caesar's lines. Caesar's men, however, easily beat them back. Naeus and Labienus kept their men in battle formation across the river Salsum. In reality, it seems that neither particularly wanted to help the garrison, as following the massacre, Naeus and Labienus were not willing to risk their men's lives in order to save them. The Optimates retreated the following night, abandoning Ategua. Soon after, envoys from both the garrison and townsfolk came to Caesar offering their surrender. Caesar accepted, taking the city on the 19th of February. Following this action, both sides began focusing on gaining popular support for their cause. Caesar sent messengers to other towns in the area, like Ursau and Ucubi, telling them of the massacre of the Ateguans. Support for the Pompeians began to waver, some deserting to Caesar, and the Pompeians were forced.
I guess that was kind of like, could have been like just a bit of advantage that Caesar needed. Okay, he's got the place he wants. The slaughter, I guess, of the, the people there to get, the locals on his side, could, shift the power here and get the momentum on his side. Doesn't seem like it's quite there yet, though, but, things are shifting just a little bit, I think.
Pompeians began to waver, some deserting to Caesar, and the Pompeians were forced to take more drastic actions, executing the political leaders of the pro-Caesarian factions in these cities. It was now Caesar's turn to apply pressure. He first moved his camp near Naeus's on the river Salsum, beginning to fortify the area. Naeus attacked quickly, however, throwing the men working on Caesar's defences into disarray. 2 centurions of the 5th bravely pushed forward, both dying in brutal fighting, but their sacrifice inspired their cohorts to follow and stabilize the line. Nevertheless, Caesar had gotten the worst of the fighting, and he relocated to Soracarea, establishing a fort there that cut Naeus and Labienus off from Aspavia, an important town for supply.
It's like the game of cat and mouse, man. Like, each side is not... They want this fight to go down on their terms. Each side does, and neither side is going to give in to the other side. So it's going to be so interesting to see, like, who's finally going to give in, or like who's going to make the mistake. I mean, you got to assume, obviously, this is a Caesar. This is Caesar's war here, his last campaign. So it's going to be on his side. But I wonder, it's always, we're just waiting for like the opening here. It's just really cool.
Supplies. Naeus gave us off from Aspavia, an important town for supplies. Naeus gave chase, keeping his men on the high ground, but some clever maneuvering and prediction from Caesar led Naeus's men to being caught out of position and taking heavy casualties. Both sides had now had some minor successes, but neither was close to a decisive victory. Naeus delaying the campaign had been effective at first, but the loss of Ategua and the skirmish at Soracarea had cost him a lot of support. Caesar, meanwhile, needed to bring the civil war to a conclusive end. The resistance of the sons of Pompey, Labienus and Varus, was undermining his position politically. Both needed a quick victory. The older generals, including Labienus, urged Naeus to avoid battle and continue his delaying campaign, but the latter's mind was made up. He broke camp at Soracarea, making for the town of Munda. Caesar followed.
Munda, okay, here we go.
On the 17th of March, both drew up for battle. Naeus and Labienus had chosen a strong position. The town of Munda was on high ground, and they drew up their army in front of the town on the hill. At the base of the hill was a plain, approximately 5 miles wide, with a stream cutting across the middle of it. Though Caesar says they had 13 legions, this is questioned by other sources, some putting the number lower than 40,000. It is possible that the sources are somewhat muddled, and that Naeus' full force was around 70,000, including auxiliaries and allies, of which around 30 to 40,000 were legionaries. Caesar was encamped opposite the Pompeians on the other side of the plain with his army. With him were 8 legions, 3 of whom had fought with him since the Gallic Wars, the 5th, 6th and 10th, and 8,000 horsemen, including some excellent light cavalry brought by Bogard. Caesar gives his own numbers as 40,000, but in reality his army numbered around 50 to 60,000 men.
He wants to make his victories look
Caesar made the first move, marching his army out of camp and onto the plain, confident that the Pompeians would come down from the hill and fight on the plain, so their cavalry on the flanks would have room to move. The Pompeians held their position. Caesar advanced further to the banks of the stream. Again, the Pompeians did not move. Caesar crossed the stream, and still the Pompeians did not move. Naeus and Labienus knew the strength of their position and would force Caesar to fight on their terms. Having finally brought his enemy to the field, and not wanting to risk missing a...
Okay, wow. So right now, it is being fought not on Caesar's terms, so Caesar is bringing the fight to them, even though it's not the best conditions for him. So, but he's got to already know this. So I'm trying to think of what's up his sleeve. Like, is he gonna like play to their tendencies and know what kind of moves that they're gonna do next? I mean, this is getting intense.
Having finally brought his enemy to the field, and not wanting to risk missing a chance for final victory, Caesar moved to the base of the hill, drawing up his force with the 10th in the position of honor on the right, the 6th in the center, and the 3rd and 5th on the left, the rookie legions interspersed between the veterans and behind, and with his cavalry on the flanks. With little room for any elaborate maneuvers, Caesar ordered his infantry to attack the Pompeians head-on. The fighting was brutal, Caesar's men having the benefit of experience, Naeus and Labienus' men having the terrain advantage and being driven by the strongest motivator, desperate survival. Neither side was making progress. The generals and staff officers of both armies had started the battle on horseback, Caesar riding through his lines, urging his men on. As the brutal fighting continued, Caesar grabbed a shield from one of his soldiers, saying to the other officers, "This will be the end of my life and your military service," and pushed his way through to the front lines, almost immediately taking a hail of javelins on his shield. His other officers and legates also quickly dismounted and joined him, fighting alongside him. Naeus, Labienus and Varus had also dismounted and were fighting amongst their own men in the carnage. It was some of the most brutal fighting seen in the Civil War. Despite being reduced in numbers due to years of campaigning, the 10th Legion, one of Caesar's favorite and most experienced legions, finally managed to turn the tide of battle, pushing the Pompeian left hard. Naeus was forced to move a legion from his right to reinforce that wing, and as soon as he did, Caesar's cavalry fell upon the now weakened right flank. The Pompeians started giving ground, being pushed back to the walls of Munda, where they finally broke into a general rout, some making it into the town of Munda, others scattering in all directions. 30,000 Pompeians lay dead on the battlefield, Caesar having lost 1,000. Among the Pompeian dead were Varus and Caesar's one-time friend, ally and right-hand man, Labienus. Their heads were brought to Caesar after the battle, and Caesar ordered their bodies be found, and then had them buried with honors where they had died. According to Appian, Caesar would later say that he had often fought for victory, but that on this occasion he fought for his life. Despite this decisive victory, the campaign was still not over. Naeus had escaped the battle and fled.
Damn. So there was no real like big tactics with this at all. It was just basically brute force. I mean, it was like make the best man win because there was no like surprises or anything. They're just straight up, and Caesar just had the better troops. They had more experience, and even though that they had a disadvantage with terrain, they're just beasts. I mean, he had some crazy awesome troops, man. It's just kind of like when you start a game and you start at level 1. It's like going against someone who's like level 10. The level 10 guys got this way huge advantage, and this seems like even though you have less troops and disadvantage in terrain, if you're just better, a lot better, you're going to beat your enemy no matter what kind of little bit of advantage he has. So that was straight up crazy. And then eventually one side broke through, and then they get flanked, and then that's all she wrote. But it's not over yet.
The campaign was still not over. Naeus had escaped the battle and fled to Carteia with what survivors he could gather. Many more were either preparing to defend the town of Munda or retreating to Cordoba. Caesar's men blockaded the men in Munda in a gruesome fashion. The bodies of the dead Pompeians were used to create a palisade, and spears with heads of the dead were put along with it.
What?
Meanwhile, messengers reached Sextus in Cordoba with news of his brother's defeat, and after gathering a bodyguard, he slipped out of the city at night. Leaving a detachment under Fabius Maximus to keep the survivors in Munda surrounded, Caesar soon arrived at Cordoba. It had since been reinforced by some who had escaped Munda, but with the help of the pro-Caesarian faction in the city, Caesar quickly stormed and took the city, 22,000 Pompeian soldiers and sympathizers dying in the fighting.
Wow.
In Carteia, the pro-Caesarian faction there detained Naeus and sent envoys to Caesar, hoping to atone for previously having sided with the Pompeians. However, the pro-Pompeians rescued Naeus, killing the leaders of the Caesarian faction and fighting to take the gates of the city. Naeus was injured during the fighting, but was able to escape the town with 20 ships before Caesar could arrive.
Damn.
Didius, in command of the Caesarian fleet, heard of this and sent ships to give chase, stationing men along the coast to watch for Naeus making any landing. Having left in such a hurry, Naeus did not have time to stock up on water or food, and was forced to make land to try and resupply. Didius's men quickly found him and captured most of his ships, burning the rest. Naeus once again managed to escape with what few men he could. He and his companions were continually hounded as they fled, Naeus being wounded in the shoulder and leg during one of these skirmishes. Having been on the run for weeks, and now having to be carried on a litter, Naeus arrived at Lauro with probably less than 1,000 men. A Lusitanian betrayed him, telling his position to the Caesarians. A force under the command of Lucius Caesenius Lento soon arrived. Badly outnumbered, the Pompeians nonetheless made what defences they could on the high ground and prepared to make a last stand. Despite Lento's larger numbers, he was initially repulsed, the Pompeians resisting desperately. Eventually, the weight of numbers proved too much, however, and the Pompeians were overrun, Lento's men cutting them down.
Wow.
Naeus, who had been carried by some of his men from the battlefield, was finally found. Despite his wounds, he bravely tried to fight back before being cut down. Like his father,
I'm gonna say, Naeus, man, you're not Caesar, dude. You're not making some spectacular victory right there, man. He was on the run, man. The guy was hurt, was stabbed, and he was still on the run. And eventually, he's probably like, "Man, enough running, dude. We need to make a stand here." And yeah, it wasn't meant to be for him, man. So wow.
he bravely tried to fight back before being cut down. Like his father, he too was beheaded, his head being displayed at Hispalis before Caesar ordered him to be buried with honours. During this time, the men at Munda had continuously made sallies against Fabius Maximus and his men.
He got buried. They chop his head off, put it on a stake, and then, okay, you get buried with honors now. Doesn't that kind of like, that doesn't make sense. It seems like, you're going to be buried with honors, but first of all, we're going to chop your head off and put it on a stake. Yeah. Anyways,
The men at Munda had continuously made sallies against Fabius Maximus and his men, but were consistently repulsed. Soon after Naeus' death, Fabius stormed the town, killing or capturing all 14,000 men there. All that remained of the Pompeian faction was Pompey's son Sextus, who had escaped but was now little more than a pirate. Meanwhile, Caesar had been travelling throughout the province, reminding the citizens what good he had done for the province while quaestor and praetor there. While he was engaged in these actions, he was joined by one of his nephews, the grandson of his sister Julia. This young man was Gaius Octavius. It was around April of 45 BC. The great Roman civil war was over, and Caesar was on his way back to Rome. Caesar was probably bored without gaming, but you shouldn't be, as the sponsor of this video.
Alright, the sponsor of this video, that's it, alright.
For him in Rome, and we're going to cover them in our next episode. So make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see.
Alright, so we're going to see what happens next in Rome, okay? We're not going to see, this is it for the battles, but now we get kind of see some like the cool political stuff. So, and I pretty much know how Caesar dies, so that's not going to be a shock to me, so I'm going to be honest and say, I know pretty much how he dies. But it'll be cool to see the leading up to that kind of thing. So I wonder, one second, guys, if you're even still watching since the video's over. Let me see something. I think I missed a little something here.
Phone 12 and a lot of resources. Munda was the last military action of his life, but plenty of political battles were waiting for him in Rome.
Okay, exactly. That's what I meant. So we're in political battles. So we're not done with the battles, guys, because we have political battles, and that should be really cool because we really haven't done that yet in the Caesar series. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, man, there was a lot of like running and chasing and like, I don't know, man, like each side just, they wanted the better, I guess, the better ground, and eventually, I guess Caesar's like, enough is enough. You got the higher ground, okay, like I'm tired of running or chasing or whatever, and they had their battle, and Caesar won anyway. I mean, so it makes sense why Caesar's enemies wanted the better grounds, because they knew if they fought him straight on, they were going to lose. Caesar had the experience. He had the men with who were more experienced. So I mean, Caesar's enemies, they weren't dumb. They knew they had to have some kind of advantage, even though they had a little bit more men than Caesar. Apparently, they knew who they were up against, and they weren't dumb. They knew they needed some kind of advantage. So, and yeah, Caesar, he was fighting for his life, because it's basically, everyone, well, the guy, his enemies were, but then it wasn't like, I guess, the Gallic, wars, where, if he loses, it's not the end of the world. He just goes back to Rome or lives to go fight another day. He can't, if he loses the battle here, he's dead. There's nowhere to fall back to. So, he'll just chase him. I guess, right? Anyways, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button below. And another awesome video by, Kings and Generals. And, the series ain't over yet, guys, but I'm pretty sure you guys will let me know when the next one comes out, because the political battles will begin, and I'm sure it'll be pretty awesome and epic. And so I'll see you guys tomorrow for some awesome more future videos, because that's what we do here. You learn history and have fun doing it, right, guys? Hope you guys are having fun. I have fun. And appreciate you guys watching. You guys have a great night or great day or whatever it is. Guys, peace. Catch you guys in future videos. Love you guys. Bye.